Okay, this is Tony again, and today I'm going to be reviewing all of the blue cards in Ravnica Allegiance. This is mostly again for limited, but if I notice something that I see for standard, I will be, mentioning that, or even some of the older formats, modern, legacy, vintage, if I knew anything about that. But, I'm mostly a standard and limited player. So, for limited, here we go. We're going to start with Arrester's Admonition. It's 2 and a blue for an instant that says return target creature to its owner's hand. It does have addendum. If you cast a spell during your main phase, draw a card. So to me, it looks like this card is a little overpriced for its first thing, return target creature to its owner's hand. But if you're doing it during your main phase, you're getting about what I would expect. I'm not a big fan of this card right here. The second half with the addendum is fine, but it's just a little overcosted. Just a little bit for me. Next, we have Benthic Biomancer. It's a single blue mana for a 1/1 Merfolk Wizard Mutant. It has 1 and a blue, Adapt 1. Adapt is if this creature has no +1/+1 counters on it, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on Benthic Biomancer, draw a card and then discard a card or loot. This card looks okay. It looks more like a constructed card than a limited card, but it is a 2/2 that loots once. So, I mean, it's not terrible in limited, but it's certainly, there's better ones for sure. Above the average, but not great. Next we have Chillbringer. It's 4 and a blue for a 3/3 elemental with flying. When Chillbringer enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So, looking at the base thing, 5 mana, 3/3 flyer is about average. It's about, what you would expect, with a little bit of an upside, where it can tap a creature and make it untap. So it's a good tempo card. To me, this seems like a fine card. It'll probably be in most of my blue decks. I would like the 3/4, but, that's fine. Next, I have Clear the Mind. It's 2 and a blue, sorcery, that says target player shuffles their graveyard into their library and draw a card. This card doesn't seem great to me. I mean, maybe there's some shenanigans if you can use multiple of them over and over again so you never mill yourself out. Also, there is a little bit of a mill kind of thing going on with blue. So maybe if you're milling yourself, this might be able to help that so you don't go a little overboard. To me, I wouldn't be playing this in most decks unless, like I said, you're doing some shenanigans with multiple of them. And so you're never milling yourself out. Maybe that would be it, but I'm not going to be taking this card very highly. Next is Code of Constraint. It's 2 and a blue for an instant that says target creature gets -4/-0 until end of turn and draw a card. It's a little overcosted at that point, but you do draw a card. The addendum says if you cast a spell during your main phase, tap that creature and it doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Which is fine too. I mean, I'm probably going to cast this more in my main phase than not, just so I get 2 turns of it being pretty much useless. But sometimes you just need it as the -4/-0. And with the draw card, it's perfectly fine. It's going to go in most decks. Next, you have the Coral Commando. 2 and a blue for a 3/2 Merfolk Warrior with a lot of flavor text. That's it. It's just a 3/2 Merfolk. If you need it, you need it. Otherwise, it's nothing special. Essence Capture is our next card. It's 2 blue mana for an instant that says counter target creature spell. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature you control. This one seems decent for me. It's going to stop creatures, which is what you really want. And there's a +1/+1 counter theme going on in Simic, so that might be useful for that. So overall, I'm going to say this is a pretty decent card, and I'll be taking that one. Eyes Everywhere is next. It's 2 in a blue for an enchantment. It says, at the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1, and then for 6 mana, exchange control of Eyes Everywhere and target non-land permanent. Activates this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. This card seems fun to me. First of all, you get to just scry 1 every turn. Not really even worth a card, I don't think. But the fact that you can pay 6 and exchange anything for it is going to be great. Your opponent can then also pay 6 and do it. But if he doesn't play blue, then he can't do anything. And if he's paying 6 every turn to to give it back, that's also fine, because it's going to give his creature summoning sickness if it's a creature that you're taking. So this looks like a good card to me. Certainly one of the higher picks. Next we have Fairy Duelist. It's 1 in a blue for a 1/2 Fairy Rogue with flash and flying. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-0 until end of turn. This card seems fine to me. Like, you know, it's a little bit of a battle trick. You get a creature on top of the battle trick. I kind of like it better than the one we saw earlier, the Code of Constraint, where the creature got the -4/-0. Just because it's a creature also. You may not get to draw a card, but you know, the 1/2 creature, if you can throw some more counters on it, then you're going to have a good flying creature. But it definitely needs some help. Next, we have Gateway Sneak. It's 2 in a blue for a 1/3 Vedalken Rogue. Whenever a gate enters the battlefield under your control, Gateway Sneak cannot be blocked this turn. Whenever Gateway Sneak deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. In most limited games, I'm expecting you won't be playing a ton of gates. Not so much that you can expect to be doing this every turn. So it's not going to be like it's 1/3 unblockable. The fact that it is just draw a card, though, is nice. And so, I mean, if you're playing with like 4 or more gates in your deck, I would probably be looking forward to this card. But otherwise, it's a 3 mana 1/3, and that's not really my cup of tea. I'm not really into this card too much, unless you were playing the gate deck. Humongulous is a 4 in a blue for a 2/5 Humonculus with hexproof. That means this creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. I am a fan of this card. In almost every set, there's one hexproof creature that you can give evasion to with an enchantment and make it just pretty much unstoppable. This card seems good to me. I'm going to be picking this one, especially if there's a good enchantment out there. Next, we have Mass Manipulation for XX and then 4 blue mana. So minimum 6 mana if you want to have this have any effect whatsoever. Gain control of X target creatures and or planeswalkers. This card seems really, really strong, especially in Constructed, where you might be able to get more mana. In Limited, it's probably not as good. It's still going to be fine. 6 mana to gain control of one of your opponent's creatures is pretty much the going rate nowadays. And then if you have 8 or even 10 mana somehow, it's going to be just bonkers. So pick this card highly. Like I said, 6 mana to steal one of your opponent's creatures is well worth it. Next, we have Mesmerizing Benthid. It's 3 blue for a 4/5 Octopus. It's a mythic rare. When Mesmerizing Benthid enters the battlefield, create 2/2 blue illusion creature tokens. Whenever this creature blocks a creature, that creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Mesmerizing Benthid has hexproof as long as you control an illusion. This card seems really, really strong to me. 5 mana 4/5 is perfectly rated for it. It's a little above the curve for what I would expect in blue. The fact that you get 2 more creatures with strong abilities is really strong, and the fact that it's hexproof is way better. So take this first almost every time if you can. Next is Persistent Petitioners. It's 1 in a blue for a 1/3 human advisor. You can pay 1 and tap it to have target player put the top card of their library into their graveyard. That right there, I would not be looking forward to this card. But it has more. It has more text. Tap 4 untapped advisors you control. Again, not necessarily just the persistent petitioners, but any advisors. Target player puts the top 12 cards of their library into their graveyard. A deck can have any number of cards named Persistent Petitioners. If you happen to get a bunch of these cards, I think this is going to be really strong. If you can get like 6 or 7 of them, which, you know, I've seen with the Legion Conquistadors before, I think you really have a good chance to mill your opponent out with this pretty quickly. In Standard, I can definitely see this happening soon. I mean, just 12 cards at a time is an awful lot. And if you can have any number of them, I mean, the Rat deck right now is really strong. So this one's going to be good. I like it. If it's your only one, don't play it. It's not going to be good if it's your only one. Actually, you know what? A 1/3 for 2 is about the going rate. So I still like it better than that other 1/3 gate creature. Next, we have Precognitive Perception. It's 3 blue for an instant that says draw 3 cards. That's about the going rate, I would say. But it does have an addendum. If you cast a spell during your main phase, instead, scry 3 and then draw 3 cards. Which is certainly better. I think we've had a card like this before. At 5 mana, that's a good spell. But it's also not an instant at that point, and I kind of like drawing the 3 cards at instant speed to hold up some sort of counter spell on the other turn. I think this one I'm going to be actually playing more as the instant than as the sorcery. Next we have Prying Eyes. It's 4 blue for an instant that says draw 4 cards, then discard 2 cards. I'm going to be playing this card so many times. Anything that says draw 4 cards just makes me so happy. So the fact that you have to discard 2 is fine. You're probably going to be discarding a couple land cards that you're not going to want anyway, especially if you have 6 mana. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want like 3 or 4 of these in my deck, but if I have 2, I'd be thrilled. Next we have Terramander. It's a single blue mana for a 1/1 flying creature, which normally would only be okay. You know, you'd want some sort of shenanigans to go with it. But we have 7 in a blue Adapt 4 ability that costs 1 less to activate for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. So it's a flying 5/5 for a single mana if you can adapt it. And this right here is a great card again. If you're playing a spells deck, much like both in Modern and Standard right now with the Drake's deck, this is going to be a busted card. It's a 5/5 mana. Who knows? I don't even know how early you could make it a 5/5, but very quickly. And in Limited, I can definitely see this happening also pretty quickly. So take this card. If you're in a spells deck, you 100% want this card. Next we have Quench, 1 in a blue for an instant that says counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. It's kind of like Mana Leak, but for 1 less that they have to pay. Mana Leak's always been a fine card. I'm assuming this one is also going to be relatively good too. I could see this being played in both Standard and Limited on a fairly common basis. Anything farther back, you are never ever going to be playing Quench. I don't see this seeing Modern play or Legacy or anything else. It's not that good. Sage's Row Savant, 1 in a blue for a 2/1 Vedalken Wizard. When Sage's Row Savant enters the battlefield, scry 2. That seems good to me. 2-1 for 2 is the going rate. It's what you would expect, with a little bit of an upside of scrying 2. I mean, the Omen Speaker was 1-3. They kind of did the same thing. And this one's just more aggressive, which fits more into the Simic feel. So, I like this card. I'll probably be taking it. Not super highly, of course. Kind of like middle of the pack-ish. But I'm happy with it. Next, we have Senate Courier. It's 2 and a blue for a 1/4 bird with flying. It does have an activation of 1 and a white. Senate Courier gains vigilance until end of turn. This card doesn't do it for me. I mean, it's a good blocker, especially because it gains vigilance, but a flying 1/4 creature, no. I don't want anything to do with this card. Unless you're playing extremely, extremely defensive, you're not going to want this. Next, we have Shimmer of Possibility. It's 1 and a blue for a sorcery that says, look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put 1 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This card seems fine to me. Doesn't give you a card advantage, but it certainly gives you an ability to look through and pick out the card that you want out of your top 4. And for only 2 mana, it's well worth it. I'll be playing a few of these in all my blue decks. Next we have Skatewing Spy. It's 3 and a blue for a 2/3 Vedalken Rogue Mutant. It has an ability 5 and a blue, adapt 2. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has flying. This card is a bomb. You 100% want this card. Every Simic deck is going to need to have flying on its creatures. And this just absolutely is 100% a bomb. 4 mana for a 2/3 is, pretty much the going rate, maybe a little below it for blue. But the fact that it makes everything else fly with a counter on it, take it highly. Next I have Skitter Eel. It's 3 and a blue for a 3/3 fish crab. I love that it's a fish crab. That art is so amazing. It has 2 and a blue, adapt 2. So, I mean, on turn 5, you could be attacking with a 5/5 in blue. That seems kind of crazy to me. This seems like a really good card. I would certainly be taking this, almost even above middle of the pack. But, middle of the pack to a little above. If you can get anywhere below that, you're doing great. Slimebind is next. It's 1 and a blue for an enchantment aura, flash, and it says enchanted creature gets -4/-0. Not very good in my eyes. I'm not looking forward to this in my drafts. I mean, -4/-0, it doesn't kill it. It can still block, and if it's a big enough creature, it can still do damage. So, don't be looking forward to this card. Please just kind of probably stay away from it. Next we have Sphinx of Foresight. It's 2 blue for a 4/4 Sphinx with flying. It says you may reveal this card from your opening hand. If you do, scry 3 at the beginning of your first upkeep. And at the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. This card is also a bomb. It's a 4/4 flying creature for 4 mana. If that's all it said, I would be thrilled to have it. The fact that you might be able to scry 3 first turn, and then every turn scry 1, it's all upside. This is a first pick card for sure. Next we have Swirling Torrent. 5 and a blue for a sorcery. It says choose one or both. Put target creature on top of its owner's library, or return target creature to its owner's hand. 6 mana for this ability. Yeah, you better be getting both. you better be using both of those abilities, because 6 mana is not worth it otherwise. But for both of them, I would say that's fine. Not a high pick, but it's fine. Next we have Thought Collapse. 1 blue for an instant. Counter target spell. Its controller puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard. 3 mana counterspells are what you would expect. This one has the either up or down side depending on what you're playing. I don't think there's a lot of graveyard synergy stuff going on right now in the other sets, in the other guilds I mean. So I think this is just pretty much all upside in limited. So I would probably take this one. If you like counterspells and you have a more defensive deck, this might be good. You would need a lot of these to mill your opponent out, so if you're making the mill deck, it's great. But again, it just seems middle of the pack to me. It's certainly not above the halfway point. Unless you're in the mill deck. Next we have Verity Circle. It's 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes tapped, if it isn't being declared as an attacker, you may draw a card. And for 4 and a blue, tap target creature without flying. This card seems decent to me. In limited, I can see it being probably just a sideboard card against like like an elf deck or something like that. So you can just draw more cards. Or if you're of a high mana deck, you can at least tap down those bigger creatures. This really just seems like a sideboard card all over the place. I don't see it being used quite a bit in the main deck. Not many creatures are tapping for anything else. I mean, I'd have to look through this whole set, but I'm not. No, I don't think so. So this is sideboard card at best. Next we have the Wall of Lost Thoughts. It's 1 and a blue for a 0/4 wall. Walls all have defender, and when Wall of Lost Thoughts enters the battlefield, target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. It's a wall. It's fine. It has that mill effect, so again, if you're in the mill deck, this is one of those things you're going to want. I don't see there being more than 1 mill player at a table, so you're probably going to get all of these if you are the mill deck. And, an 0/4 wall for 2 mana is also fine. It's going to stop a lot of the smaller creatures. The Gruul decks might be getting a little bigger than 0/4. So that's one thing you're going to have to worry about. But I think I'd take it middle of the pack or much later if you are the mill deck. Windstorm Drake. It's 4 and a blue for a 3/3 Drake with flying. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+0. Most blue decks are going to have flyers anyway, so this seems really good. 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer is the average. That's exactly what you'd expect, and it has upside. So I would definitely be taking this. And if you do take this, be on the lookout for more flying creatures and just try to grab as many as you can. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you all enjoyed it, and tomorrow I will be reviewing all of the black cards. So, thanks for watching this video. Bye.